Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of Community Psychology, Psych 1105. Lindsay here. And what I'd like to do now is a quick overview of what your second week in our course will consist of, the different activities that you'll be doing throughout the week, and the material that you will be covering in this week's lesson. I will do separate video tutorials for the actual lesson itself, but this is just an overview of what you will be working on this week. So first of all, this is your first week of doing, or your first time doing one of the graded discussions for the class. So let's take a little bit more of an in-depth look at what will be required of you for this particular assessment. So to get things started off, what I'd like to do is go over the discussion information and the marking rubric, and then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about what you are going to be doing in this activity. So you can find all of these documents, of course, in our FOL page, and they can all be found in the content area. So by clicking on the course links drop-down menu and you go down to content, they are all also linked from the homepage when your weekly checklists come up. All right, so hopefully by now you've all had a chance to look over this document. For our class, you will be doing one graded online discussion every unit. So we have 3 units in our class, and for each one of those, you're going to do one graded discussion. Each of these is worth 5% of your final grade, so for a total of 15%. And again, what the online discussions allow you to do is talk to one another essentially and share ideas, do a little bit of thinking, and learn from one another. We'll go through the grading rubric in just a moment, but basically what you have to do for each one of these 3 discussions is 2 posts. So your first post will be your original post where you are going to answer some questions, do some reflecting on a topic that I'm going to give you. For this week, you're going to do some thinking about the ecological levels of analysis. And then after you have made your original post, you will be able to then view your classmates' posts. And I'd like you to choose one of your other classmates' posts to respond to. I always say that it's nice to choose a classmate who you can see that maybe doesn't have any replies yet. You know, it's nice to feel a little bit of love, right? So if you see that one of your classmates doesn't have any replies to his or her post yet, that's a nice way to do it. So what you're seeing here, quality over quantity. These discussion posts are not big. There is a word limit on them for a few different reasons. So this isn't one of these exercises where, you know, putting extra work into it and making it longer, etc. That's not going to automatically get you higher marks, etc. In fact, that will actually count as not following instructions, and you can expect to lose marks if your post is significantly over 250 words. I'm not going to, you know, mince words or split hairs if it's a little over 250 words, but if we kind of start getting much over, then you can start to expect to lose some grades over that. And it's for a couple different reasons, right? You know, don't make things more complicated or difficult than they need to be. You're busy, you know what I mean? And it is a skill to learn how to write concisely. So that is one of the transferable skills that I'm hoping you will take away from this exercise. So what I want to see is that you're engaging in really good critical thinking, that depth of thought is evident from your discussion post, so those are the things that will result in higher grades with this particular assessment. So of course you have all of the weeks that your discussions are taking place, and just a few guidelines, right, for your post. I'll let you guys look over these in a little bit more detail yourselves. But of course, what I always just say is that, the same guidelines for in-class student interaction apply to your interaction with one another in an online format, right? So the Student Code of Conduct applies to online discussions just as it would with in-class discussions that we would have in a face-to-face class. So what this means, of course, is that the dialogue will remain respectful, collegial, and some people sometimes get a little concerned that because it is an online discussion, that it has that kind of connotation of, sometimes the kind of debate that can happen on social media that can go sour, or the kinds of comments that you might see at the bottom of a newspaper article online. Some not so great examples of human interactions. So that is not the kind of discussion that you can expect to see and experience and participate in this assessment. This is an academic exercise, and I want people to be interacting with one another in a way that is respectful, academic, keeping the nature of the discussion appropriate for what we're doing here as a class. So of course, I hope that answers anyone's questions or concerns that folks might have about these discussions. And of course, when you respond to your classmates, again, let's keep things respectful. I don't have any concerns about you guys, but, I just like to say it up front just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And it's more than appropriate to disagree with one of your classmates if you have a different view about something. But again, we never attack another person. We might say something like, that's an interesting point. I disagree. This is the way I see things, or I have another opinion, or something like that, right? So again, you don't necessarily need to agree with everybody, but let's just keep the tenor of the conversation respectful. So this is a document, again, that is available for you on FOL. What I'm going to now look back at, where am I here? Discussion info. The other thing that I wanted to look at quickly right now was the marking rubric that I use to mark your discussions. So when you make a discussion post, this is what I look at to mark your discussion post. So what I do is you have a mark out of 30. I give you 10 points for your original post, 10 points for your response post, and then 10 points for the overall mechanics of the post. So for the number one, I look, are you following instructions? Are you engaging with the material in a way that is, evident of critical thinking, of depth of thought, etc.? Are you making connections between current societal issues, phenomena, stuff like that? Are you posing intriguing questions, ideas, reflections? And then in the response post, I look for something similar, right? It's a response post. You are responding to your classmates' ideas. Maybe you are, contributing a different way of considering what your classmate has written about, etc. So I'll be looking for similar criteria for your response posts. And then for the mechanics, what I'm looking at there is, your spelling, grammar, punctuation. This is still an academic exercise, so please make sure that you are proofreading, that the word choice and vocabulary are appropriate. I don't want to see any, text speak or short forms, no lols, or BRBs or anything like that, right? You know what I mean? The kind of short forms that we would use in those kinds of contexts. One of the things I recommend is to write your discussion post out in a Word document, proofread it, read it out loud to yourself, make sure it sounds okay, and then post it, right? Don't write it in that little text box that you get in the actual discussion area. So that's how I mark your discussions. Now you can access the discussion in a couple of different ways. Again, it will be linked from the announcement, but you can also get it at this drop-down menu just by clicking on the discussion. Then you'll see this little announcement that pops up here going through some of the information that you need to have for the discussion. And then you would click on this, and yours will look a little different than mine. But basically what you'll do is you'll scroll down to the bottom and click on this button right here, Start a New Thread. So if you click on that, it will load a pane where you can, enter your subject and copy and paste from your Word document your discussion post. So again, you will do that and then you'll hit post. And once you do that, you will be able to see your classmates' posts, and then you can start to have that interaction and discussion with one another. So that's what that looks, my friends, or what that looks like, my friends. So the other thing I just wanted to go through quickly, where are we here? So for the week 2 checklist, you can see that I've got a few other things on here, right? So you've got the discussion. So let's take a look at what you're actually going to be doing for this discussion. So for the first discussion for our class, you're going to be looking at the ecological levels of analysis. And what I want you to do is think about those ecological levels that we talked about last week, right? So the individual, microsystem, organizational, locality, and macrosystem levels. And I want you to think about a social issue or psychological issue that is important or of interest to you. You can choose one of the ones that's here. You can choose one that's not here if you want. This is by no means exhaustive. And what I want you to do is, again, this is a critical thinking exercise. There's really no right or wrong answer here, and I really mean that. What I want you to do is essentially think a little bit about what ecological level of analysis you think contributes most to a social issue. So for example, the example that I gave here is homelessness and the locality level. Is homelessness, or how can homelessness be affected or caused or worsened by factors that happen at the locality level, for example? So what you would do is choose one of these social issues, choose an ecological level of analysis, and just do a little bit of reflection and thinking about how this particular social issue or psychological issue could be caused or worsened by things that might happen at that particular ecological level of analysis. Good. So again, these are the parameters. You have to have it posted by midnight, right, by 11:59 p.m. on Friday. And that's what you'll be doing for your first discussion. And then, of course, remember to respond to one of your classmates as well by that same time. So the other things that we're going to be doing this week, of course, we are going to be talking about community psychology research. That's the main topic that we're looking at this week. So you will see a couple more video tutorials posted about the weekly lesson. You're also going to do a participation exercise for me, which will be due by next Monday, May 15th at 8 a.m. in the assignment Dropbox. So make sure that you take a look at that. So that's what we're going to be doing for this week, guys. Oh, and if you haven't done the 1% bonus assignment, or the first one yet, the Introduce Yourself discussion, make sure that you take a moment to do that, because it's a very quick, easy 1% on your final grade that I find makes a difference. So that's where I'll end things. Welcome to week 2. Welcome.